Welcome back to the deep dive.
Well,
Today, we've got something a little different, something really fascinating. We aren't, dissecting ancient history or the complexities of astrophysics.
not today.
No.
Yeah.
Instead, we're doing a deep dive into an architectural blueprint. It's a strategy document, really, that lays out exactly how to build optimal learning content.
hmm
And specifically, we're looking at the design specs for information aimed at speeding up English language acquisition.
Right. So we're looking at the how, not just the what.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our source material laid out a very clear requirement.
Yeah.
Create content focused on identifying and critically fixing weak English learning habits.
And what's amazing about this isn't the specific English advice itself, which we don't even have. It's the methodology.
Exactly. This blueprint is a masterclass in how to structure information for, maximum cognitive retention, minimal overload, and actual behavioral change.
Yeah, that last part is key. The knowledge we're extracting here isn't the final product. It's the strategy for making that product effective.
I love that distinction.
And for you, the learner, this is an incredible opportunity to kind of reverse engineer success. If you can understand how effective educational content is designed to, well, to guide your attention and behavior, you can apply those same rules to your own study routine.
So our mission today is to extract those key principles of habit optimization and content structure from this outline.
Absolutely. Think of this as learning the operating system of effective instruction.
Ooh, I like that. If you know the code, you can debug your own learning process.
It's the ultimate metacognitive shortcut.
So let's start right at the core requirement. The central premise is fixing weak English learning habits. Now, why that focus on habits? Why not just list, common grammar mistakes or vocabulary gaps? Why the pivot to behavior?
That is probably the most crucial distinction in this whole blueprint. Focusing on weak habits immediately makes the problem behavioral, not intellectual.
Okay, say more about that.
Well, if you tell a learner they have a weak vocabulary, that feels huge. It feels like this massive, maybe insurmountable problem that requires months of just rote memorization.
Right, it feels like a personal failing.
Exactly. But if you tell them they have a weak habit of, say, translating every single sentence into their native language before they try to speak, well, that feels like a process flaw.
That distinction changes everything. It reframes failure completely.
It does. It implies that getting stuck isn't about your ability, but about your process. And a process is inherently fixable.
So we're talking about sustainable long-term improvement by just replacing an inefficient routine with an efficient one.
That's it. The blueprint recognizes that consistency is the engine of language acquisition. If you have a bad habit like only studying when you feel inspired, the whole system just stalls, no matter how smart you are. The focus here is on creating new, stable daily routines that actually guarantee progress.
Let's ground this with an example. A common weak habit might be you only practice English passively by watching movies with subtitles, but you never actively produce the language yourself.
A perfect diagnosis. And if the content can frame that as a weak habit rather than, a failure of effort, the learner is going to be so much more receptive to the fix.
Okay, now let's talk about a detail that looks minor on the surface, but is strategically massive. Specific number. 5 habits that make you weak in learning English. Why 5? Why that insistence on the number 5? Not 3, not 10.
This plugs right into some core cognitive science, specifically the limits of our working memory and this idea of chunking.
Right, the old George Miller research.
Yep. The decades of research suggests that the average person can only hold about 7 distinct pieces of information, give or take 2 in their short-term memory, at any one time.
So 7 is the absolute limit, which makes 5 the sweet spot.
Precisely. A list of 5 provides a structured, highly manageable framework. It's concise enough that you can memorize it quickly, but it's also robust enough to cover the most impactful weak points.
And if you present 10 weaknesses, you're just overwhelming the learner.
You risk information paralysis, which completely defeats the goal of getting them to change their behavior. The number 5 is actionable. It's a list you feel you can master without feeling defeated before you even start.
It also imposes a pretty strict discipline on the person making the content, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They can't just waffle. They're forced to be ruthlessly selective, making sure only the most vital, high-leverage weaknesses actually make the cut. That respects the learner's time right out of the gate.
It guarantees maximum yield for minimum cognitive investment. It forces focus, which is just critical for any learner trying to gain knowledge quickly.
Okay, so if the diagnosis is focused on creating this manageable, fixed routine through those 5 key habits, the next step is turning that diagnosis into action. And this is where it gets really interesting. The mandate isn't just to identify the problems, but also how to fix them.
Yes.
It's an immediate pairing of diagnosis and prescription.
And that action-oriented approach is, frankly, non-negotiable for effective instruction. Imagine watching a video that just lists 5 huge problems with your study routine, and then it ends.
Ugh, that would be awful. You'd feel frustrated, maybe guilty.
And you'd be left with no clear path forward. Pure diagnosis, when it's uncoupled from an immediate solution, just leads to paralysis.
It's like the difference between a doctor saying you have a serious illness versus handing you a prescription for treatment on that same piece of paper.
Perfect analogy. That pairing delivers relief and a clear, immediate path.
So by immediately coupling the problem with the solution, the weak habit with the fix, the content translates abstract knowledge into application instantly.
Right. Let's go back to your example of the weak habit, passively consuming content. The corresponding fix might be something like the 5-minute shadowing rule. Repeat every line of dialogue from that show out loud right after the actor says it.
That's super actionable, very measurable. It's not just speak more, it's a defined tactical activity.
And that fulfills the learner's need for actionable insights and directly avoids that information overload we talked about. Every piece of negative info, the weak habit, is immediately resolved by a positive, implementable instruction.
So it's all built on maximizing momentum. You identify the blockage and immediately give the learner the tool to clear it.
Exactly. It maintains the learning flow.
I do wonder, though, does that rapid pivot from problem to solution risk, I don't know, minimizing the seriousness of the underlying habit? Could someone feel like, oh, it's just a tiny fix, I don't need to commit much?
That's a really thoughtful question,
Yeah.
but the strategic decision here seems to lean toward overcoming the inertia of just starting.
Ah,
The blueprint recognizes that the biggest hurdle in changing any behavior is simply starting. The fixes are designed to be immediate, tactical, not necessarily these huge long-term lifestyle changes, even if that is the goal.
so the goal is just to get you, the learner, to try the fix once.
Just once. If the fix is effective, then that positive feedback loop starts to take over. The simplicity is part of the implementation strategy. It's less intimidating.
Right, which raises an important question for you to ask yourself, no matter what you're learning. How quickly can you pivot from finding a knowledge gap to implementing a real constructive solution?
Because if that time lag is too long, the motivation just fades.
Okay, let's transition now to the delivery strategy, which, as you said, is kind of the hidden lesson here for anyone who consumes educational content today. This shows how optimized knowledge is designed for our modern attention economy.
It really does.
First, there's a time constraint specified in the blueprint. Create a 10-minute video. For content that has to deliver 5 diagnoses and 5 fixes, 10 minutes feels pretty aggressive.
It's very aggressive.
So why is that 10-minute marker so significant for this kind of content?
It's purely about respecting the learner's time and, maybe more importantly, their attention span. In a world of infinite content, being concise signals value. 10 minutes is generally the max length for what we call micro-learning. These focused, digestible, high-impact lessons you can consume during a break or a commute.
It just mirrors the reality of a busy person trying to slot learning into a fragmented schedule. If I start a 30-minute video on my lunch break, I'll probably never finish it.
You won't, and the retention will suffer. So the 10-minute ceiling forces absolute clarity and ruthless editing. Only the most vital nuggets about the 5 habits and fixes can be retained. It sets a very high bar for efficiency.
It also works psychologically, I'd imagine. Knowing the commitment is short makes the decision to even start much easier.
Way easier.
Okay, next. The source outlines this dual objective. The content must be engaging and educational. You'd assume all content should be good, but the blueprint stresses that both are required. So what's the functional difference between educational and engaging here?
Well, educational content provides the information, the facts, the definitions, the rules. Engaging content is what ensures that information is actually consumed, retained, and most importantly, acted upon.
So engagement is the bridge to implementation.
That's the perfect way to put it. If you're aiming for behavior modification, engagement is completely non-negotiable. The content is, in a way, trying to sell the learner on the idea that they must implement these 5 fixes.
Right.
If the presentation is dry or boring, the learner gets the data, but they lack the motivation, the energy, or the conviction to actually incorporate that new habit into their routine.
And speaking of motivation, let's look at the ultimate behavioral psychology tool mentioned in the blueprint. It says, use a strong cliffhanger hook intro for the video. It's great for audience retention.
Yeah, that's straight out of Hollywood.
It really is. It's directly borrowed from screenwriting and television production.
And for good reason. It's a powerful psychological lever. This tactic deliberately creates what's called an information gap. You get exposed to just enough information to understand the size of the problem, like a startling statistic about how much time you waste with one weak habit. But the crucial solution is withheld.
So they might tease the solution to one of the 5 habits, but make you wait 2 minutes for the reveal, so you have to stick around.
Exactly. That delay creates a kind of cognitive dissonance, a mild but compelling discomfort from having a question left unanswered. Your brain is wired to want to resolve that gap.
And that curiosity is the engine that keeps you engaged.
It keeps you engaged long enough to ensure you don't just hear the diagnosis, but that you receive the entire prescription. It guarantees the content package stays intact.
It's the ultimate payoff mechanism. Without that hook, a learner might click away after the first weak habit because they think, oh, I already know that one. The cliffhanger ensures they stay for the fix.
It leverages natural human curiosity to enforce the delivery strategy. It just guarantees that all the effort you invested in crafting those 5 fixes isn't wasted because the audience drops out halfway through.
So what does this all mean when we put the pieces together? Our deep dive into this content blueprint reveals that truly effective learning is, well, it's a strategic product.
Yeah, it's design.
It's as much about the structure, the timing, and the psychological delivery of information as it is about the facts themselves. We've analyzed the strategy behind optimizing learning behaviors, the power of 5-FIT to manage cognitive load,
The necessity of immediately pairing the diagnosis with the specific tactical fix.
and the effectiveness of that tight, engaging delivery using psychological hooks to maintain momentum.
And the key takeaway for you, the learner, is to internalize these structural lessons and apply them to your own study habits. Doesn't matter if you're tackling English or trying to master a complex spreadsheet or reading history.
So when you approach a new, daunting topic, try to identify your core actionable gaps. Maybe limit yourself to those manageable 5 fixes.
And structure your dedicated learning time efficiently. Treat it like a mandatory 10-minute sprint to maximize retention and just minimize distraction.
Don't just absorb the information. Analyze how the information is being delivered to you, and then apply that structure to your own absorption process. It turns you from a passive receiver into an active learning strategist.
You have to treat your time and your attention like the valuable commodities they are. Demand efficiency and clarity from your learning resources, and that includes yourself.
And to leave you with a final thought, the source material specifically highlighted the power of the cliffhanger hook for audience retention. We know it works to keep us watching a video, but how could you strategically incorporate moments of anticipation, those information gaps, into your own personal study schedule to keep yourself motivated?
That's a great question.
Maybe you schedule a difficult practice problem, but you only let yourself look at the first step of the solution. That's your hook, right before you switch tasks for the day. That could ensure your brain feels compelled to return and resolve that tension tomorrow. Something to think about as you continue your own learning journey.
Always be analyzing the strategy behind the knowledge.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you next time.